Well, I've woven as much of the stripe as I feel is necessary, and now it's time to weave in the blue field with the New Directions logo. Before we start, I'd like to show you, I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on video, but I will bring this along so you can see it in class. You can see a slight gradation, color gradation in the white beads right about here. As I straighten this out, just about here, you can see how they've gone from a sort of a gray iridescent tone to a much much brighter white. That's just about where we changed our thread from the black to the white. Now you won't see in the beads that you have in your kit as much of a difference between the black thread and the white thread because you're using a different bead that's not quite as translucent, but this is why you always want to use the same color thread throughout a project unless there's a specific reason to change. There are some subtle differences when you make changes in thread color, and unless it's a design element, it's best to be very consistent. Now we're going to move on to the blue field. You have in your packet a graph, and you can see the letters N, D, I spelled out on a blue field. Each one of these little ovals represents a bead, and you can see the woven portions of your bracelet versus these little end beads. And these end beads are now, instead of just being a way to turn your work around, are going to become a very important part of the design element. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to weave 2 or 3. It's up to you, rows of blue. The point is to have a little separation between the stripes before you start your letter. And usually my rule of thumb is you want to have at least one bead of blue on top of the prior color, in each. See, here are 2 rows, here are 2 beads of blue. You want to have some kind of separation here. In the graph, you have 3 rows. You don't necessarily have to do that. It's at your own discretion. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to quickly weave 2 rows in of blue. And here I go. I'm going to pick up my 2 beads to turn around. Snug it tight. And I'm turning around. And now you can see I have a nice break of blue between my red and white stripes and where the letters are going to begin. So now I'm going to look at the first row on my chart where my N begins. And I've helped you out. You won't typically see this in graph charts for peyote stitch, but I've helped you out by separating the beads a bit and running lines through each row to help you know what beads are in what row. So what I'm telling you in here, you can see where the numbers are very tiny. You might not be able to distinguish it, but this is row 30 on this chart. You're going to pick up, your little end bead is going to be blue, and your first bead is going to be white. So you're going to have to go blue, white, 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 and then you're going to have a blue end bead. So I'm going to pick up a blue and a white bead. And I'm making my little turnaround again here that at this point you should have grown very used to. And now we're going to have a total of 4 white beads. Now what a lot of people find very helpful is as they're working graphs and charts to use either a highlighter pen or pen to mark off the rows that they've done. And that's part of why I put these little lines in. So what I'm going to do is take my pen right now and I'm going to just kind of cross out this line so I know I finished it. That way if I step away from the project I can come back, I'll know exactly where I'm at. Or even now as I turn around I'm going to know exactly which row to do next. I know I need to pick up a blue bead on the side and another blue bead, pass through this white bead, and then just pick up the, 3 more white beads. So here we go. I'm going to pick up my blue bead and my second blue bead, because the chart says to pick up 2 beads, blue beads. I'm going to pass through the white bead. Now, so I picked up this blue bead. Pull it a little closer so you can see. I picked up this blue bead, picked up this blue bead, I passed through this white bead. Now I'm coming back up and I'm picking up 3 white beads in a row. So, white, 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 and now I've completed this row. I'm going to cross it off. And now I can see that the next 2 beads I need to pick up are blue. So I'm going to pick up 2 blue beads. One's an end bead, one is woven in. Pass it through the first white bead. And I need 2 more blue beads and a white bead. So a blue bead, a blue bead, and a white bead. Have to tease the thread loose there because I just caught it on the end. Snug it up. Check my craft. Cross out the row. On the top, if you notice, on the top you're always going to pick up 2 blue beads. It's the bottom that you have to check to see if you pick up 2 blue beads or a blue and a white bead. So I'm going to start my next row by picking up 2 blue beads. And passing it through the first white bead. Now I can see the next bead that I need is a white bead. And then the rest of the row is blue beads. So I'm picking up a white bead. Now the pattern or the letters may not be apparent as you're weaving them immediately. You have to trust in your graph. And 2 more blue beads. Cross out the row. The next row, the end bead is blue. The woven in bead is blue, so two blue beads. Notice how I'm not turning the work over. That would, as I go back and forth, it would become very confusing to work this if I did. So I'm picking up two blue beads. Now I need a blue bead, a white bead, and a blue bead. So, picking up one blue bead. Picking up one white bead. Picking up another blue bead. Remember, we decided at the top we're always picking up two blue beads. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over before I cross out this row. Crossing out the row. Now I've already picked up this bead, so I see I need to do a blue bead, a white bead, and a blue bead. So I'm going to pick up a blue bead, a white bead, and a blue bead. Cross out the row. Now I see I need to pick up two blue beads on the bottom, so I'm going to do that next. And you can see already how the start of the N is forming here for New Directions Incorporated. Just continue following your chart until you get to the end. Add a row or a couple rows after the end of your eye just to put some separation in, and then start the second half of your stripe. The second half of the stripe should be the same length as the first half. I'm going to put this piece down for a second, and I'm going to pick up a finished sample. You can use the ruler to measure the second half of your bracelet, but I always find it easier to just fold. If you have something in the middle like NDI, fold it in half, and you can measure. If you have one stripe that's long enough, just measure the second half against the first half. You don't have to keep measuring with a ruler at this point. So just keep on weaving, and we'll pick back up again when we get to the point where you're adding your clasp.